Evening, everyone. We'll get started.
I can do yours all electronic.
Good evening and welcome. It is Thursday, July 7th, 2016 at 6 p.m. And this is a regular meeting business session of the Olentangy Board of Education. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order. And if Mr. Kern, you please call the roll.
Mr. Bartz?
Here.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mrs. Patrick?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here. Thank you. So if you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For the approval of the agenda, we have two items. Under the Treasurer Action Items 13A, the reference to FY16 should read FY17. And for Superintendent Action Items, item 14A, we just have a revision to the list of people. That'd be fair to say?
Exhibit C1 has been, C.3.1 was modified. We removed a few employees who were going to get additional period pay. So we're going to, we've had some growth in elementary enrollment, so Mr. Meyer's looking at a more efficient way to staff that. So we're going to wait.
Okay.
So with that, can we have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that or questions on those two items? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so the agenda is approved 5-0. So our first and only presentation item, Ms. Spring is giving us a presentation on the wellness program. If you would please join us.
We also have Steve Dunn, too, here from Mount Carmel. As we started with Mount Carmel last year, and they gave an update, we're in our second year, going into our third year with Mount Carmel, helping us administrate and run our wellness program. I asked them to come give a brief update on this year and kind of where we're heading next year. We're making a few changes to the program, trying to evolve over time here and to get, I guess, people more healthier, I guess, is the biggest goal at the end of the day. We will eventually come back at a later date for approval for renewal of their contract for one more year.
Thank you. Appreciate the board for your time this evening. Hope everyone's doing well. In 2014, we established the wellness program with the goal to increase the well-being and productivity of all the employees by enhancing all aspects of health. And then as we move along, the partnership between Olentangy Local School District and Mount Carmel Health System was designed to create a comprehensive on-site wellness program that increases awareness, motivates employees, and to voluntarily adopt healthier behaviors. And I would like to turn it over to Amanda, who is the health coach for the program, and she can do an overview and talk about the success that we were able to gain during the 2015-2016 academic year.
Yeah, some overall program highlights include exceeding the screening participation goal of 55%. We actually had 62% of the district participate in the biometric health screenings. And if you're curious as to average participation rate of corporations, usually it's about 30%. Wow. So Olentangy, we more than double that number, which is pretty impressive. We also had 30% of the district successfully complete 6 or more wellness events, which does not include the screenings. And a wellness event is a fitness class or a health coaching session, a challenge, or a lunch and learn. We also had 72% of the district that participated in at least one component of the wellness program aside from screenings, which was a 38% increase from the previous year. Some biometric screening highlights aside from our participation rate. We had 80% of the buildings improve their participation number. The minimum was 53%, with the exception of one building, it was 47%. Some individual building highlights: Walnut Creek had a 36% participation increase with 8 separate key health risks that were better than the national average. Key health risks include blood pressure, cholesterol, weight, triglycerides, glucose, all the biometric numbers. Hyatt's Middle School and Wyandotte Run Elementary are 2 of the most participating schools, and they both each had 12 different key health, or separate key health risks that were better than the national average. And Arrowhead had 85% of their staff participate. This compares Olentangy to the market and national averages. As you can see, we have several components where we exceeded the comparisons. You know, I won't go through all the list of numbers there, but as you can see, we've got quite a bit, and they're also on your handouts too. The upcoming goals for the next school year, of course, we're gonna raise our screening participation goal again from 55% to 60%. And even though we've already achieved 62%, we wanna maintain that number. Self-care management, we wanna track and reward for all yearly physicals, mammograms, prostate exams, colonoscopies, and self-reported physical activity, which are all new components that we didn't have the previous year. We also want to improve stress levels. We're still 7.7% lower than the national average. However, on a positive note, like it says, we have 4.5% improvement from last year. And I also would like to improve the biometrics of both transportations combined. They have 18 separate key health risks that are lower than the national average. On a positive note, though, they had 20% increased participation at just one site alone, so that's positive. The next step, it's year 3 and time to grow. We're going to implement a new point-based reward system. This will, of course, improve the culture of wellness and create more opportunities for staff to participate in activities that they have more interest in. And hopefully, you know, we'll make lifestyle improvements and they can achieve their health goals. So in your handout, I just want to point out a couple things on your handout. In the right-hand column, there's a section that says original rescreening. And I took 50 people from the first year and screened them, and then I took the same 50 and rescreened them again the second year. And there's lots of positive comparisons on there about improvement and maintaining numbers and maintaining within normal limits of different biometric numbers. And then also I did a rescreening challenge this year where we did the initial health screenings at the beginning of the year, and then I had people sign up for a challenge where the goal was to improve their health numbers, and then I rescreened them at the end of the year to see, you know, if they actually did meet that goal, and we've got a lot of impressive numbers for that too, so I just want to point those out. And I thank you for allowing me to be part of the wellness program, and does anyone have any questions?
I just had a question. I just wanted to know how many of our employees have signed up for the fitness center, because I tend to see a lot over there. So that's
Yeah.
got to be, do we know?
You know what, it's always changing,
Yeah.
so I have to check and get a current number on that. I hate to say now, because last I checked, I know it was probably in the 60s, but I know that's a lot different now. It's been months since we got the last update.
I do know, you guys probably saw it, I know a couple of you are
Yeah,
members
three of us.
over there.
3 of us are members.
Where
Yeah.
we had enough participation where our discount went from 10 to 20% on from the monthly fee, so hopefully we can continue to get more people. I'm also a member over there, that's a great,
Yeah, it's a
great facility.
Thank you, yeah, it's just very nice.
Yeah.
We like it.
But at the end of the day, it's overall, hopefully somebody's participating in the gym somewhere.
Yeah.
Or outside running or something, wherever it may be, to improve overall health.
They're having a picnic open house this weekend at noon to 3, I think, if you want to go over and see it and check it out. But it's very nice. I know, I'm there. I like it.
Very nice. Does anyone else have any questions?
I just would say, from my perspective, watching Amanda work with our staff, the success of, and it's a great program, all the things that brings to the table, but this is an example of one where the person really makes a difference. She does a great job.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I got a good staff to work with, so it makes it
Yeah.
easy.
Great.
All right, well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have 3 items under the board presence report. One is Mark has passed out to each of us, it's in a manila folder, artifacts. These would go into the binders that we have for his superintendent summative evaluation, which we'll do next month. So as you're prepared to react to his comments and then fill out your part of the form, our place where we make the reaction, and then in executive session, we'll compare those notes, come up with a consensus, and then obviously feed that back to our superintendent. So that's what those folders are for. Number 2, we will change our August 11th regular meeting, business meeting, to August 4th. And that is primarily driven by the fact that things are advancing pretty well so far. We're going to hear more about this with our High School 4 project. And we want to make sure that we take advantage of pricing and timeliness so that contractors can get materials ordered and get started with construction. So even that week will help the process. Again, it's a very positive program that's going on, and we want to do everything we can to assist that effort. And thirdly, it was great that we could all be there for the Orange Township July 4th parade. Mr. Kern couldn't join us because he's out of town on a wedding, but it was a lot of fun, good to see a lot of people there. And just like the Liberty Memorial Day parade where we were all in attendance and handing out candy and waving, it was nice to see a really good crowd there. So we were happy to do that. Hopefully that would become a tradition. So with that, superintendent's report.
You know, since we don't have a lot on the agenda, I thought I'd put a lot into my superintendent's report to
Yeah.
make sure we stay for our allotted 2-hour time.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Where's that evaluation file?
As usual, start off with some good things. We have in our preliminary state test results, very, very preliminary right now. We're waiting to cleaning up the data. I tell you, Jeanette Kenny and Ian Way do a great job of getting this. I think they typically release the data at midnight, and I'll get notification from Jeanette by 8 or 9 in the next morning because she stays up all night crunching numbers and cleaning up the state data. As you're all aware, this is the first year of another set of new assessments. The cut scores are significantly higher. You know, the way a lot of people approached it, or initially when these tests, new tests were coming out, they said that the old advanced is the highest level, accelerated, proficient, limited and basic, that the new proficient level would be what the old accelerated level would be. So everybody expected scores to drop significantly across the state. And our scores are down, you know, at a number where we're not alarmed. Right now we're calculating the preliminary PIs for all the buildings. It's very difficult to do that because quite honestly, we don't know how the states are gonna calculate them. As you see in that colored column, we've met every indicator except for 8th grade language arts. We fell about 3.5 points short there in 8th grade language arts. I've had conversations with numerous superintendents across the area. What is it, is 22 out of 23, Jeanette? 22 out of 23. I did talk to 2 suburban superintendents who believe they're going to meet 9 indicators. So while
And we're meeting,
22 out of 23.
Yes.
So we're not, again, I'm not,
That's
I haven't, you know, I haven't gotten a total poll of the area. You know, but again, these are first round of the tests. Be an opportunity to dig into the data and see where we can make improvements. So, you know, again, it'll be a little bit different on a preliminary level with the PI. 11 of our 15 elementaries appear to have increased their performance index from the previous year. The middle numbers are down. The high school numbers are down significantly, and that is mostly due to the elimination of the Ohio graduation test. We used to test all of the 10th graders in 5 subject areas. Now we're only testing in language arts and mathematics, and we're only testing in algebra and geometry at the high school level. Most of our kids are taking algebra and geometry at the middle school level. So we're not testing our highest achieving students
Oh my
across the
gosh.
board.
oh, so the 8th graders.
Jeanette, I think I just stepped into an area I'm really. Yeah.
No, so so the 8th graders that are taking algebra aren't getting counted in the algebra tests.
You're getting counted for the middle school.
For the middle, yeah, but not for the high school. Oh
So
my
we
gosh.
will see a significant drop in the high school PIs.
Wow.
And it simply is a function, you know, I just don't, we last year we had, you know, all 3 high schools were all A's, and,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not certain we did anything differently, so it is totally a function of how these things are being calculated. So, but again, it will affect every district in the state, and we'll wait to see how we shake out in the comparisons there. So we'll have much more information. I would say I have it on there as a good thing because I do believe preliminarily
the results are strong. I have great confidence it will be where we've been in comparison to our similar district groupings. So, one discussion item on the agenda, Mr. Gordon is going to be here to talk about the first guaranteed maximum pricing for, which is for our site work. As Mr. King indicated, there will be an additional guaranteed maximum pricing for the construction of the building, and I think another one for what's left. He'll have more information on that coming up. And then a couple other agenda items. We have 2 administrative employments. A new position of student well-being supervisor and assistant custodial supervisor. We've just reclassified. That was a position we already had, but we're just reclassifying it to give additional supervisory role to our 150 custodians, since we had one person supervising 150 custodians, so we reclassified somebody in his administrative position there. We have our master service agreement with Meta Solutions to provide our information on that provided to you. That's a yearly item. As you know, Meta provides is our ITC. They provide our data services to the state. So you can reserve your comments about their interim CEO. Dr. Lucas, the esteemed Dr. Lucas. And then geotechnical construction materials is, again, you had support, in your support documents was a memo describing that. And then after we have the discussion on the GMP, we do have, and Jeff will explain the amendment for High School 4 because of something you've previously approved. That document now needs to just be amended now that we have the GMP information coming forward. As we prepare for calendar year 2016-17, we have our Calamity Day plan, and even though, because we extended the contract, we're still on that cycle where we are on days, even though the state has switched to hours. In order for our Calamity plan to go into effect, we would have to miss 35 days of school. So the public will be happy to hear that we, for all intents and purposes, we will not be implementing our Calamity Day plan. So we will not be doing, I don't anticipate us having to do blizzard bags or teachers to have to prepare alternative lessons or those kind of things. But that's just a formality, which will be hopefully our last Calamity Day plan. You've had 2 readings of the continuous improvement plan, so that's on the agenda for approval. And then a couple other, when Devin put this together and I was reviewing it, I was going, oh my goodness, here we go again. First Convocation and Vendor Fair, if you want to get on your calendar, is August 16th. Great opportunity to see the staff. As you know, we do the secondary staff first thing in the morning, and then the elementary staff at 10 o'clock, and then we have the auxiliary gym at Liberty High filled with community vendors, and it's just a great opportunity to engage the community. We'd already had this prepared before we decided today to change that meeting to August 4th, and it's about time to start talking about the first day of school, Wednesday, August 17th. Here it comes, so we'll be ready. And then obviously our board business meeting on the 25th, so. Any questions?
Might change.
Mrs. Patrick?
The student well-being supervisor, what is that role? Is that over guidance counselors?
So if you recall, because you really weren't part of my interview process when I did that, and that's really where I've been talking about that, the whole idea of addressing what I call non-academic barriers to learning.
Okay.
So so we have our school community liaisons, and then even our guidance program K-12, implementing someone here in central office to work with all those various groups to address all the different needs our kids face. Mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues, guidance. I mean, there's just a myriad of things that we're going to look at. So it's an attempt to, as I said before, I've said this before, in that I think from an academic standpoint, we do a very good job of pulling the levers with curriculum, instruction, and assessment to get the kind of results we have. We have a population of our students who are not who are not meeting the mission of the district, and there's a lot of other factors, and they're not necessarily related to academics. So they're going to work in pupil services.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Very
Thank you,
good.
sir.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Kern, your treasurer's report for us, please.
Yes, as far as treasurer action items, you're approving some amended appropriations already for FY17 and approving one donation by Olentangy to Heights Middle School for $11,500. Your board action item tonight, the approval of the exchange agreement. All that is just to let you know, we did close on the Academy building last Wednesday, June 29th. So that building is officially ours now. This agreement is just an agreement by the former owner for tax purposes called a 1031 exchange, where he's just deferring some capital gains as he purchased another building. So just a matter of formality that the board has to approve. But yes, we do now own the Academy building, which was a part of our successful March bond issue. So. We also, this week, we closed our books for 2016. We'll be getting the financial report in August for the year, and how we finished in June there. Just some preliminary numbers for you guys overall. We came within 0.3% in revenues, which were, our actuals were more than our estimated, which was a good thing, about $700,000 over. And then our expenditures came in about 0.6% under we had estimated. That was about 1.1 million to the good for us. So overall, about a 1.8 million to the good.
Questions?
That is good. What do you attribute the 1.1 million less in expenses that we were anticipating? Is there one item that really stands out? Like, I know that gas prices have come down, and
Yeah.
a lot of times that was killing
And
us.
that was an adjustment we made with the last forecast. At the end of the day, it was mostly spending. We didn't spend all that was appropriated in budget. We had anticipated in talking with departments where they would finish up, and they still finished up under and stuff. So it's a good thing.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have any comments, public participation for general comments? Do you have any?
No.
Okay. So that brings us to our discussion item, and Mr. Gordon and others, if you would please, the guaranteed maximum pricing, high school 4.
Good evening. I will start the discussion out on giving an update on the budget, which leads into the approvals of our guaranteed maximum price, or GMP1. Mr. O'Sullivan then will come up and kind of walk through for you the GMP process. He did a great job with the facilities committee, so he's going to come up and do a quick review for the board on that process, how it works, and then I will return and kind of talk about the comparison that I sent out to you yesterday on our first GMP. So this document should look familiar to you. Should I have the right one? This is the bond breakdown that the board approved last fall, and in that was the budget for the high school. And as you can see down here, the 69 million was off-site and plus all of the cost. And I'm showing you this document again because going forward, we're going to kind of use a different format for the budget as we track it, which is what I sent out to you yesterday. And I did just want to point out that that number remains the same, even though like loose equipment and technology, those numbers have changed around. When the facilities committee, which created the original budget, put these together, there's two parts of loose equipment. One is what Fanning Howey has bid for us on Orange High School. The other is what the district purchased on our own, where we worked with the principal to purchase. Same with technology. There's things that our technology department, computers, things that they purchased. There's things like switches and other things that were part of a bid process that Fanning Howey purchased for us. Well, some of those things where Fanning Howey would have purchased for us were up here originally, whereas these things down here are things that the district purchased. So this whole budget kind of has been rearranged as we really looked hard at item per item for Orange High School, and then reclassified things to match up. As you all are aware, we're using a different method for building the high school this time around. We're using the construction manager at risk. And so what we tried to do with this next budget here that, and just again, take note, the 69,549, what we've tried to do with this budget line is break down everything that Gilbane is responsible for, our construction manager at risk up here, and then move everything else that we're responsible for down in the lower areas. So then that way we can track Gilbane's budget costs and the GMPs as we come in. With the guaranteed maximum price, then we want to make sure as we take each step, whether it's 2, 3, or even possibly a fourth GMP, depending on how the pricing comes in, is we want to make sure it's not throwing off our budget, that we don't have anything that's significantly out of line that we need to take a look at and make sure that it's not going to throw off the budget as a whole on the project. As you all, I think, are aware, there have been a lot of construction projects throughout Central Ohio that the budget was created back in 2010, 11, and 12, several years ahead of time, and then with the inflation and increase in construction costs, they've kind of run into some budget troubles. And so we've been trying to be very cognizant that could happen. Mr. Runyon, Mr. O'Sullivan, and myself have worked hard at really looking at, along with Gilbane, at what we could do in the buildings. And we've done some minor modifications with brickwork and some different roofing things. We've asked for some alternates as we've gone through. So if we do end up where we have to really look hard at the budget, we can look at some alternates or things along the way to make sure that we try to stay in there. So we've been working towards staying under budget, knowing that we are hitting a little bit higher construction inflation last year and year to date this year, that we're trying to make sure we stay under and beat to the market so that we can get our costs locked in before those continue to go up. That is, as Mr. King mentioned, the need for the desire to move that board meeting up in August, as it really helps us with getting some things ordered and with some of the pricing that Gilbane is seeking, getting that locked in earlier as opposed to later. Back to the budget here. So this is again, the construction budget that Gilbane is responsible for, and these include all those off-site things that they'll be responsible for putting in. That's running the storm sewer to the south down the farm between us and the developer that's just north of Cheshire, and the utilities that run along that road as well, and our portion of Pyatt Road that we're putting in on the east side of our property line for the county, which really is an exchange for them giving us the ability to go along the roadway. So all of those, Gilbane is responsible for completing, so that is all in this budget number up here right now, along with their pre-construction cost and their construction cost, which has a breakdown over here. Now, some of these are percentage-based, so they'll change as we go through. And that brings me to the part of the amendment that Mr. Rafe mentioned. We have an approved construction contract with Gilbane where our pre-construction cost and their staffing cost and some of their costs are locked in, whereas a couple others are based on percentage. So the only thing that we have locked in with the construction cost is the percentage, again, some staffing, and then pre-construction. So as we do the amendment, each amendment will adjust those numbers. So as we get cost in for the work being done on the GMP Amendment 1, for example, the percentages that we've agreed to with Gilbane will be applied to that portion of the work, and that will adjust. So as the numbers come in lower, some of these the total Gilbane construction cost will decrease somewhat if the budget goes down. If the budget goes up, of course, we could also have some increase in those costs, again, being percentage-based. The nice part, the thing we have been able to do with Gilbane is we've locked in some of their costs, but if they spend the construction contingency, the percentage doesn't apply. So there's no incentive for them to spend the construction contingency on things because they don't get any benefit themselves from it. So there's no percentage on that for them. And that was something that Mr. O'Sullivan was able to negotiate in with Gilbane there at the last minute. That isn't usual, but something we thought might help. We didn't want them to be incentivized to use that contingency, so we were able to get that in. The rest of the budget, you can see this number carries down, and then we just add in these other items as we go through here. Some are known now, others will get, obviously, as we do the bids. We do have an owner's contingency here in addition to the Gilbane contingency up top, the $799,000. Of course, our owner's rep cost, and then insurance cost that we'll have throughout the project. But the key here is tracking these numbers. So what the spreadsheet does, this is that I mentioned and showed the last budget number. Here's our end budget number that the board approved, the $69,549,000. Right now, we're tracking at, we're $538,000 under budget based on estimates. Now, keep in mind, this number can go up, it can go down as we move through the project. Right now, we've got GMP 1, and I think Mr. O'Sullivan will talk a little more about it, but we have just a smaller percentage of that pricing in. Gilbane is working with their other subcontractors as they work towards GMP 2. They're getting more input and more hardware prices from that. So as we get to GMP 2, that percentage will jump up. We'll be more sure, and then by the time obviously we get to GMP 3, we'll have a pretty good handle on what our total project cost will be, or at least where we're at trending on the budget. So I will tell you that when it was just estimates, we didn't have subcontractor input, this number didn't look quite as good as it does there. So we're trending in the right direction, and the early items for GMP2 appear to be trending in the same direction as well. And what we think will then be split out to the GMP3, there's some items there, electric and plumbing, that we think we have some concern with. So that's where right now we want to keep a close eye on as we track the budget. So, but right now we're in good shape here on the budget, and that's taking quite a bit of work to make sure that we're staying under that and kind of keep our thumb on things that are going on and getting out to the market. One of the advantages that we have had with changing our construction method by going with construction manager at risk is normally we would be starting to bid these packages ourselves, going out, Fannie Howie would bid them for us, and then low bidder be locked in. With Gilbane, they've been talking to contractors for months. They took the orange documents, they took the documents that Fannie Howie had updated up to that point, and they've been feeding that out to the subcontractors to gain interest in the project, to get them interested. They know it's a big project. It's one that in some cases they can be on for a year or more and lock in. So there's a lot of interest, and we really think that has helped us keep some of our subcontractor costs down as we start moving through, because they know that Olentangy has a good reputation in the construction market for being fair and having good documents and clean projects. So there is quite a bit of interest for us, and Gilbane's been out generating that interest by talking to subcontractors clear back in April and May, right after they were brought on board. So we do think that has been a help for us from that regard, is having that process, because otherwise we would just be low bidder, and companies that are busy right now might be less inclined to really want to go out and bid that, whereas Gilbane's been able to generate interest. So, any questions on the budget portion? Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Bill. Just leave that up there.
Well, first, it's been a while since I stood in front of the board to talk about construction in our district, so thank you for the opportunity, and it's very exciting. This is great. I wanted to give a little context to what the numbers mean, how we got to where we are, and where we're going with the numbers as a team. As we started out, we said, well, let's look at what the real important focus points would be, and what do we have here that's really special to our district and what we can make pay off for us. One is replication, and secondly is minimizing uncertainties in the GMP. So those are two areas we really wanted to focus on. Replication it's millions of dollars that replication has saved this district through the years. That's been just a tremendous approach that we've taken as a district. We certainly wanted to take advantage of that on this job as well. And there are two sides of that. The bidding side, which I'll talk about in a second, but also from Bruce's and Fanning and Howie's side, the document side. It allows completion of documents, sooner than would otherwise ever be possible. It also allows, and the quality of documents on Liberty High School was great. Orange was even better because they got vetted. And this, again, will allow it to be even better. So that part of it, the community knows that. As Jeff said, the reputation of Olentangy in the construction community is very high, in large part because of quality of documents, and that'll continue here. That's a big help. The other part, as far as the bidding documents, we wanted to move ahead to how do we best use those documents and get some input to feel as good as we can as we go through this process, because as we commit to a site package tonight, there's a long way to go. So where do we stand? How comfortable are we, and what can we do to be as comfortable as possible with the process? In that regard, for one, with the history we've had with Orange, it allowed us to check scopes, check past costs, Gilbane to use them, and use them as some barometer as we go. That's been certainly a help. Having those documents, that's been a big help. And we talked as a team, Gilbane and Mr. Gordon, Mr. Runyon, how do we maximize that? And on the one hand, we could bid the orange documents, and that sounds silly, and in a way it is, but we've got a lot of information there that can be a big help. So as we work through this, Fanning and Howie was able to take key trades that we defined, meaning foundation, structure, masonry, roof, and get those documents up to speed with the new high school, and get them out to trades and get them bid, which Gilbane has done. Those remain to be finalized based on the June 30th true completion of construction documents, but Gilbane does have in hand construction numbers for today's market, for today, for our new high school, for those trades, and that's over 30% of the project itself. So, you know, managing risk is what we all want to do, obviously. So as we stand here tonight, you know, to go ahead with a $6+ million site package, we've also got, you know, 30% or so of other costs in hand that we know we're going to be good there. So that leaves the remainder, as Mr. Gordon said, to get through yet. As far as the estimate that Gilbane has done, good news is it's trending the right way so far, but we've got a long way to go. We've been able to, again, use some old data. Gilbane has talked to some of the contractors, the key mechanical, electrical ones that did Orange High School, got some feedback. It's not a guarantee, it's not a bid, but it's some input as well. So other things are going on that lend some level of credibility or a little more comfort, let's say. Not to say things can't happen, but it's not purely just a $6 million GMP and an estimate that has not been vetted in any way. So we're a little better than that, and I think that's an important thing for managing risk. As far as the process goes looking forward, and I was going to talk about the potential of an early board meeting, and Mr. King and the board, thank you for already announcing that. That's awesome news. That is really good. And it sounds a little silly, I know, maybe to some, to say, well, instead of the 11th, what about the 4th? But what that allows at a minimum to happen is the trades I just mentioned, the concrete, steel, roof, and masonry. Those will be ready for them, as Gilbane has told us. And if we save that week, it allows to get a spot in mill orders, in shop drawings, get mill steel going on the project, and a week is huge. Plus, in terms of starting foundations, in a week better weather than a week would give us in November, who knows? So, you know, starting earlier now, you can't buy a week in December that's anything like a week in August. So, that's great. We really appreciate that, and that's going to be a benefit to the project as well. So, I think I've covered everything, but if there's any questions, please.
I just have one question for you, Bill. So with there being such a boom in construction,
Yeah.
are you finding that the trades, there's interest now from the trades to look at this project? I mean, I know that's one of the things we talked to in the facilities committee about 6 months ago, that was going to be a potential minor hurdle, but something. Are you seeing that interest now?
Yeah, and as Mr. Gordon mentioned, Gilbane has been beating the streets on that, in regard to that. A couple things in that regard. You know, their efforts and communicating with the community helps, but frankly, the reputation of Olentangy helps. The reputation of the quality of documents that Fanning and Howie puts out helps. The size of the job helps. You know, that's a significant project, and for especially mechanical, electrical, masonry, those are big packages. So there's a lot of interest just because of that as well. So if you pile all those together, so far what we've heard from Gilbane, we've had good coverage and good interest. With this process, as an answer to that as well, in the old scenario, if it was purely public bid, it's open to whoever can bond the job. In this case, Gilbane is able to screen subcontractors that not only are capable, but also are maybe you'd prefer to have on a job as opposed to someone who can just bond it, but you're worried about performance. So some performance screening goes on their part as well, and that helps. But so far, the interest has been good.
Bill, I know you're in a new role. This is something different than what you've done for us in the past, and for the benefit of newer people. How many buildings is this for us?
Bruce and I were guessing at 15 or so, something like
And you
that.
supervise the construction of both Orange and Liberty?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're in good hands.
How do you feel about the level of contingency? Feel it's aggressive, it's not aggressive?
Interesting point. When the job was, when the proposals were received, each CM firm quoted a contingency percentage for their construction contingency. That's not the 700,000 that's there for our owner's contingency. We had varying percentages, and actually one negotiation we had with Bill Bain was that the percentage they quoted, in my opinion, in our opinion, was higher than it should be given what we know about our district. That's another example, I'm glad you brought it up, that replication, quality of documents, we actually reduced the contingency that is in Bill Bain's contract based on that. And they are comfortable, and we are comfortable with what's there right now. And to emphasize that point, I'm glad you said that again for another reason. In the normal GMP scenario, or let's say another typical scenario, the GMP would be for the entire project, maybe partial way through design. So documents aren't done yet, a number gets put together, and the GMP has to be approved. At that point, documents aren't done, the designer's making assumptions, the contractor CM is making assumptions, putting in numbers that are soft and you don't know. For that kind of thing, there are surprises, there are unknowns. It increases the GMP amount because of all the unknowns. And you need a bigger contingency in the typical GMP scenario like that. In our case, where we've pushed to base a GMP, tonight's GMP is just based on bid results only. So there's no need to wonder what's going to be on the documents, they've already bid them. So by the time we have put together and all looked at and approved the final GMP, the CDs, the completed construction documents, they'll be based on that, so that the contingency at that point will really be safe, because then we'll know. As a matter of fact, we've talked to Bill Bain, and future amendments that come to the board will have a pace for reducing or paying back the contingency to the district as the job progresses at certain milestones. So that's a long answer to your question.
I don't think we can emphasize enough, because I'm doing that business a little bit, but the replication and the ability to have completeness of documents as early as you can it's a luxury that many people do not have, and that's typically one of the drivers of cost at the end. It's because of the soft cost and the soft design. You can't get to anything that's real. So we're in a great position with that.
I think it's worth mentioning, too, that those points spoke directly to the Facilities Committee deciding to recommend the delivery method of construction to be a construction manager at risk instead of other means, multiple prime, single prime, et cetera. It's the fact that we did have basically finished drawings, reputation, quality of drawings, all those were factors, even the decision for that construction method.
Great. Any other thoughts or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, I did want to just point out, again, this is the format we'll use going forward. So each GMP will track the budget against this format, as well as if any of these numbers change, where it looks like things are coming in higher or something, we'll note that and make adjustments there as well as we get that information. The last item here, and this is really what we have to look at to compare for the GMP. And as Bill mentioned, we're Gil Bain on other projects is putting together GMPs based on documents that are 70-80% done. So when they do that, they're estimating high because they need to make sure they've covered everything. And so the fact that we're estimating in these documents, even though the final construction documents were done June 30th, Bruce had these documents, the site documents, done for them several weeks ago. So we really are getting bids on final documents here for the most part, and getting hard numbers. So in looking at how we evaluate the GMP to really see, okay, how's this trending against our budget, and what's going on, is we took the actual Orange High School's actual cost. So again, using Fanning Howey and then Bill being involved in the previous project and now this project, there's a lot of information available and breakout of costs for Orange High School. So able to go through and pick out the items on this GMP and pull the same items off of the actual dollars for Orange High School. So we can compare back to Orange High School. The other comparison we have is the original Gilbane estimate. And again, this is an estimate that Gilbane put together that was before the documents were finalized, but they were the orange documents plus anything that had been updated from Fanning Howie back at the beginning of May, early May, with that information. So we're able to track as our GMPs come in. We'll continue to track against what we actually spent at Orange High School, and of course, then we've got obviously inflation costs. So that's where comparing as a percentage of the whole comes in as well. So we can take a look at this. So GMP 1 on high school 4's actual cost trending against Orange High School. At Orange High School was 10.5% of the budget. The estimate was scheduled to be 10.1% of the budget. And here, as I noted in the information I sent out last night, this is tracking a little bit higher. We have cost here that we didn't have as a percentage at Orange High School, where obviously we're doing road work. Orange High School was adjacent to Orange Middle School, so utilities, all of those things were already there. The detention pond that we use at Orange High School was already there. So while we had challenges on that site because of the elevations, a lot of those things were already there and done. Whereas with this building, as you know, we're up north in the middle of a field. We have to run utilities up there to get there. We didn't have easements we necessarily had to pay for it at Orange High School because they were already there at Orange Middle School. So in exchange for the easement costs that we avoided, working with the county, we picked up in road costs. So that's some of those things that we've done, as well as, the size of our pond is bigger on this site because it's so flat. So we've got to find a place to hold all that water because it doesn't go anywhere and slowly release that down. So this is not unexpected or shocking that it tracks in here at the 11.8% of the project versus the other. And given that we can take a little bit of a higher percentage here, and we had some offsite costs that we put in, as you saw from the original document, there was $1 million there in offsite. But as long as we're tracking okay down here, even with this GMP 1 being a little higher for the site cost, so we're still okay here on the comparison. Down here is the construction manager cost. I didn't include them up here because obviously we didn't use this method for construction before, so obviously it would not be fair to include those in there, but I did want to kind of give you a breakdown of what those costs are for this portion of the GMP. And this is where the amendment comes in, because as each amendment, these numbers will adjust, as I mentioned earlier, so they're outlined in the GMP amendment that you received with your board packet at the end of last week, and that's what amends. So we have a contract with Gilbane that you approved previously, and then each time we do a GMP, guaranteed maximum price, it becomes an amendment to the original contract and gives actual cost and breaks those out for us each time, which then allows us to track these costs as well as the actual construction cost against our budget and what our estimates were. So, and I did want to note this information also went out to the Facilities Committee who reviewed this. They were very gracious in taking some time over the holiday weekend to review what we sent out in these comparisons. We had just a few general questions. There weren't any concerns, and we're approving of it, supported. Any questions?
Jeff, too, just to reiterate, for example, the construction manager fee, while it may be different, you call it an amendment, the percentage that they approved, the board approved back, and I believe it was April 28th, that percentage does not change.
Correct. Percentage doesn't change. The amendment just gives hard numbers to that contract. When, I think it was April 28th was the last time we looked at what you received was estimates on the Gilbane costs were all broken out. Those were estimates, and that approved us, that actually at that time approved $115,000 for the pre-construction cost, and then to finalize the agreement, and then you had the breakout of what the costs were estimated to be at that time. So those were estimates, so as we move forward and we get these hard numbers, then they'll change. Percentage, you're right, the percentage stays the same on those two items where it's percentage based, based on the actual costs that come in. So.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Yes, as you said, there's a long way to go. It's a very complex process and project, but it sure is off to a good start, so thanks for the efforts. So do we have any requests for public participation for action items?
There is none.
Okay, thank you. So I will present the board action item, which as was mentioned by Brian, is the exchange agreement with Mr. Jackson in regard to the Academy building. So can we have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that item? questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, the board action item exchange agreement passes 5-0. And Mr. Kern, your treasure action items.
Yes, I'd like to present treasurer action items A and B this evening.
And as amended.
Yes.
Did you say that or did
No, I didn't. Good.
Good.
Thanks, Dave, for bringing it up.
So moved.
Second, please?
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so the treasure action items also pass 5-0. And Mr. Rafe on the superintendent action items. with amended.
Yes. I should have, when I did my superintendent's report, I didn't welcome everybody like I'm supposed to, especially our Boy Scout.
Yeah.
So I'd like to present superintendent action items A through I as amended.
Motion, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? And if you call the roll, please.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so the superintendent action items also passed 5-0. So with that, we could have a motion, please, to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, so we are adjourned. Thank you for being here this evening.